Hi, I'm Raquel Kalpakoff, and I am on women's soccer.
How'd you end up at UC San Diego? Tell us that story.
I remember we finished the tour and then we drove around and we did that, the drive down the Hoya Shores, and then went to Scripps at sunset. And I was like, I'm coming here, like this is amazing. But in terms of deciding whether or not like this was the school for me, a big part of it was wanting to stay close enough to home, staying in California, but also being at a school that was very environmentally focused. And then the soccer thing, obviously that worked out. So that's pretty awesome.
So knowing that you wanted to attend UC San Diego, how did the soccer part fall into place?
So I toured the school, I loved it. Knew that I wanted to play college soccer, but I mean, coming from a smaller town, getting recruited isn't easy, and it's not always a given. I feel like a lot of people from my club will go to Cal Poly. I feel like it's harder to get seen outside of the town. And so my dad was like, hey, do you love the school? Their first winter ID camp is in a couple weeks, and he signed me up and it went well. And then that was in December of 2019, and then 2020 came around and COVID, and I get a phone call in June. It was, didn't hear from them for 6 months, and it just all kind of fit into place in a definitely difficult year. So that was a really cool experience. It all just kind of lined up and worked really well.
So what does environmental policy mean, or what would that major potentially lead one to do in life?
Well, in terms of the major, I feel like you hear a lot about environmental science. I'm not necessarily a science person. And so I knew that I wanted to do something environmentally focused. I just feel like that's a big passion of mine, and feeling like you're having an impact and feel like you're making a difference. And I think my generation, it's like basically impossible to ignore the environmental issues that we face. Knowing that environmental science was just gonna be a lot of science, I think I really wanted that, not just getting the science background, but understanding the application of the environmental science. And I think that environmental policy kind of gives you that real world social aspect of it that I think that really mattered to me. So I don't want to be a politician. I don't want to be a scientist. I don't want to be an educator. I think getting into environmental consulting somehow would be really cool. Both my parents worked in tech. So I know that a lot of companies, my dad worked at Salesforce, over the time they created and added sustainability as a pillar to their company. And getting to see them kind of do that, I think that could be something, kind of working with tech companies. I really don't know what it's gonna be, but I'm also really interested in sustainable agriculture. So not totally sure what it's gonna lead to, but.
You talked about the ID camp. We'll come back to UC San Diego soccer in a little bit, but just in terms of you and soccer, were you playing as long as you can remember?
I've been playing probably, yeah, basically. I think my first team was when I was around 5. I wanna say I started club when I was around, like, we didn't really have a club team until I was like 8. It was kind of like an academy. It wasn't really like a team. And that was when we were San Luis Obispo Storm. And that was like my first, I guess, team. And then we ended up, all the local teams turned into Central Coast United, which was the club team that I ended on.
And did you play other sports when you were a youngster?
I did. I played softball for one day. I played tennis for a couple years. In high school, I did volleyball, soccer, and track and field. I really liked track. There was a time where I was definitely considering doing that in college, but I like soccer more, so.
Is it the running aspect of soccer?
No, no, absolutely not. I did high jump, and I was pretty good. It was pretty good. I actually remember my track and field and my economics teacher. My track and field coach was just talking to my dad, being like, I don't know what she's doing playing soccer. Like, getting recruited for soccer is so much harder than for track. Like, she should do track. And it was just so funny when I finally committed. He like went up to my dad and was like, I'm sorry. It was really funny. But yeah, I miss playing other sports. I do. I mean, I love soccer and I'm so happy I'm here. But it was really an interesting transition to go from having your attention split so many different ways to all of a sudden, like soccer is your everything 24/7. And I think it's been really rewarding for the first time, I feel like, in my life to really put everything into one thing instead of being split so many different directions.
What has this particular soccer journey as a Triton been like for you? I mean, again, coming kind of through COVID to seeing more playing time, injury, playing time, and now scoring a lot of goals and leading the team in that regard off the bench. And like, so kind of what has that been like for you?
Showing up my freshman year, things didn't necessarily go as according to plan. I was diagnosed with asthma right at the beginning of my freshman year, and that was kind of just like, couldn't really breathe, didn't know what was wrong, and just kind of added a lot of anxiety to a process that I was really prepared for. And then when your body lets you down, I feel like that's really stressful. And that's like not the first time I've dealt with that. And then I put in a lot of work in terms of fitness. I think every year has kind of grown, I've grown from the previous year. And I think also just college sports, it's complicated and it's not always gonna go exactly the way you want it to. But if you never lose your love for the game and you really truly enjoy playing, it's worth it. And I think my dad he's always been a big reason of why I'm here and a big reason of why I play. And I think he really has helped me realize that none of this is a given. And it's just, I feel like sometimes I'll walk out to practice and I'll get a little moment of like, whoa, like I'm doing this kind of thing. Because this was not something I thought I was gonna be doing. It's not like a lot of the girls, I feel like it's like your whole club team commits to play college soccer. And I feel like it really had to be like an active choice. And I feel like a part of that makes it so much more special, personally. But yeah, I really enjoy it, and I'm really happy to be here.
Have you seen photos from when your dad played? Obviously you weren't there, but have you seen anything like that, or does he talk about memories, or have you heard kind of war stories of his time on the pitch?
I feel like a lot of his soccer experience that influenced me was the times that I grew up on the sidelines watching both my parents play soccer. And so like my dad still will play. I got a couple videos the other day of him at a game, and he scored a goal, and my mom it was so cute. But I think watching him play and growing up watching him play, like that definitely had a big impact on me, of also just like realizing that at the center of it all, it's fun. He scored almost all of his goals with his head, probably half. And in high school, I scored half of mine with my head. So I think that's like kind of our joke. But in terms of him in college soccer, I think his experience there was a change of coach during his time there. And I think that kind of threw things for a loop a little bit in terms of like promised playing time, and then a new coach comes in and then doesn't really relay on to the new coach. But it never came off as frustration. It only ever came off as like a part of the journey. So I think when I've hit those lows in college sports, both of my parents did a really great job of just kind of contributing it to growth.
How often did they see you play in person?
A lot. Actually, a lot more than I thought they would. I still have a little sister back home in high school, and the golden child is my dog, and she's, can't be brought here all the time, but I want to say they've made it to probably 80% of all of our home games, which is a lot. And even our away games, they'll make the trek sometimes. So I'm very, not that I'm surprised, but I'm very impressed by their commitment to coming and watch. And now that they're both retired, they have no excuse, so they have to be here. I'm kidding.
What does that support mean to you, knowing that they're out there watching, or maybe if they're not here, they're watching the stream?
Everything. I think after my dad was both my parents at some point in my life have been my coach. My mom was my coach first in just like, I think when I was AYSO and then All Stars, and then my dad was my coach in club or assistant coach in club when I ended up my senior year. So ended my club journey with him, which was really cool. And then my mom played volleyball and my dad did track, and they both have been my coaches through every sport I've done in high school. And just knowing that they know me so well and they know the game very, very well. And I can really sit down and talk about what I did well and what I didn't do so well. And they're always gonna be real with me. And I know that, yeah, they always love me. But I really, really appreciate their ability to be honest and have high soccer IQ conversations about that. And then also just them being there, it means everything. It's being able to go to BJ's with them after the game, and after the home games, it's like kind of what we always do, and talk about the game and just kind of catch up. And just every time they're here for a game, knowing they're watching and knowing they're there, I would say, like, knowing their eyes are kind of on you, I think it always inspires you a little bit, especially my grandparents. I'm gonna cry. Every time I think of my grandpa, I cry, so. Yeah, and knowing that my grandparents are watching too, they're all so supportive, and they come out to a lot of games too, and my family is so incredibly amazing.
Did you have family at the match at Pacific?
I did. My parents and my grandpa were there. Papa Eddie, those of you that know me, he is my favorite person in the entire world. He lives in Fresno, and he was there. Being able to score and then point at him and then score and then point at him and then score and then point at him, it was pretty amazing. The hat trick itself was amazing. My parents being there was amazing, but him being there was just one of the best moments of my life. Sorry.
No, you're good. Take your time.
He is just the kindest person you will ever meet. My grandma passed away my freshman year in high school, and I played a soccer game that day. And, sorry. I just feel like you have those people that you can really talk to about anything, and you know that are just there for you and love you no matter what. And I think that he's just kind of always been like my soulmate and a grandparent. I think it's been hard. That's something that I really like mentally and emotionally, like being in college and being away from my grandparents and my family. But yeah.
So let's talk art. So when did you start getting involved with creating art?
This is a funny story. We were trying to think about this actually. I think I give a lot of, I give a lot of this credit, almost all of this credit, to my grandma and my mom. See, I would wake up every morning when I was little at about 4 a.m, and I would go and wake up my parents. And I learned very quickly not to wake my dad up at 4 a.m. And so my mom would put out paper and crayons and stickers and like those little sticker jewels. That was my actual favorite thing ever. And she would put it all out there, and every day she would have new stickers and new little art supplies on the kitchen counter, and I would wake up and I would put my pink Sleeping Beauty princess dress on, and I would go and I would sit and I would entertain myself for like 2 hours until my parents woke up. And then my mom would turn on Finding Nemo, which I watched every single day, while I did my crayons and my jewels and my stickers and my princess dress. And I think that's like honestly where it kind of started in terms of like self-entertainment at a young age. I don't know, just kind of it being in alone time, and also just like it was fun. But the actual painting started with my grandma. She's an artist. And it started with chalk pastels, super messy, so messy. You get chalk dust everywhere, and we would go over to her house. She lived pretty close. And we would line the countertop in newspaper, and she would have the little mini tabletop easels, and we would just do landscapes and animals, and it was just so, I tell actually a lot of people this, if you want to start art, this is such a great way to start because pastel is so forgiving and it's not supposed to look refined. It's just kind of messy. And I thought that was just so fun. So that's where it started, was with her and with chalk pastels. And then I got my first acrylic set from my grandma for Christmas when I was probably like, I don't know, 13, 14. And then acrylic was really where it just took off. Like that's when I really started to realize that I loved to paint. And then I guess you could say self-taught plus taught by my grandma. And then those were, other than like watercolor in elementary school and then a couple art classes here and there in middle school and high school, that's just kind of where it came from.
Was there a point when you started to notice that you were spending more and more time painting?
COVID was when I really started to focus on it. I was in an AP studio art class over quarantine. My art teacher in high school is just, I love that man. Mr. Norton, best art teacher ever. He just really helped me take advantage of the quarantine time and dive into art. And my family, both my dad and my sister are high risk. And so we were in a really intense quarantine. I didn't see anyone for a really long time. And so having art during that period was very important.
What were you painting then?
Well, for my art class, my AP Studio art class, we had to do a portfolio and it had to be like 5 pieces that relay into each other. And so for those pieces, my focus was on how nature can help women find their confidence and self-identity. I really, really liked those pieces. Those are some of my, I think that was the first time that I was doing art and I really had to think about every little thing I did. It wasn't just like, oh, this is pretty, I'm gonna paint this. It was like, oh wait, her hand is angled this certain way and the shadow casts onto her face, meaning this, and this color symbolizes this. And it was hard, but it was really fun. That kind of also started my love of painting portraits. I painted a lot of portraits that year. I would say recently though, I've been doing a lot of animals. Well, it's my mini job. I paint pet portraits. So it started actually as a gift to a family friend for her wedding. And so her brother helped me get a photo of her and her at the time fiance's dog, and I painted it as a surprise and gave it to her at her wedding. And then from there it kind of, I was like, oh, it's really rewarding to hand someone a painting of their dog or their cat or their animal, because it's like people would do anything for their pets and then they have this, piece to celebrate them. And especially doing pets who have passed. I just finished, this was about a year ago when I first started doing pet portraits. I've probably done 20-ish in the past year. And I just finished doing some for my mom, and it was all of my old pets. So I did my dog who is currently here with us, and then 2 of my dogs. My first pet portrait was when I was about 14, and I did one of my childhood dog. And so getting to see the pet portraits that I just did of all my other dogs and then the one that I did a long time ago, there's a big difference in terms of that, how they look. But yeah, that's kind of why I've been doing so many animals, because it's, can't really get a full-time job while being a student athlete, so.
What do you use to paint with
Acrylic.
now?
But I did just get my first oil set, and I have been trying that out, and I really like it. but it's very different. Big difference between the two is just that oils have a slower drying time. If you start an oil painting, you have to do the base, and then you slowly layer things on, and it can take a week for it to dry. So you really gotta do what you can, and then kind of put it to the side, let it dry, and then pull it back out, and do what you can, and then put it to the side. Where acrylic, it's almost instant dry, and you can kind of just, I could crank those things out so fast. So I think that's been fun to try. I've basically tried every medium you could possibly try. I think I have tried all of them. I would say I paint 4 to 5 days a week, but it can be for 5 minutes, it can be for 5 hours. It's all over the place. But when I'm in season and not in school, I feel like it's a great way to feel productive outside of soccer while being physically exhausted. So that's really nice, being able to have a hobby that can kind of take place in your room when you're having a long day. I would say I don't get much done when I'm in school and season, but with season being almost over, I'll definitely be having more time to paint soon. I think that my love for soccer and my love from art kind of stem from the same thing. I think it's just a love for being creative. I think that soccer, I've played a bunch of different sports, and there's a reason I love soccer more than the rest of them. It's because the creative aspect of soccer, it's just a beautiful sport, which sounds so cheesy, and I'm quoting my dad. But growing up, being a Barcelona fan, watching Xavi, Iniesta, and Messi, and Busquets playing together, it's just like it was so, even at I was probably 14 at that age, like it was just beautiful to watch. It's just fun. And that's also one of the things I love about playing, is just, I feel like I have my best days when I feel like I'm being creative on the field. So that kind of relates the two, I guess. But in terms of the sitting alone and painting by yourself and then being on the field and playing with a bunch of people, it's, it can get lonely, like sitting in your room and you have a painting you have to get done and you're like, I'm about to be alone in my room for 4 hours. But I think that's one of the things, I try and paint around people. When I'm home, like my mom doesn't love this, but I'll sit up place in the middle of the kitchen and just kind of take in everything, the chaos of my family that's around me. And I work best in like public settings, I guess. Like I'll bring my easel down to Avila Beach Farmers Market back home and paint just kind of in the middle of everyone, and that's always really fun. And I'll go, and my grandma and I will have painting dates, and we'll just kind of sit and catch up and paint for, last time we did it was like 7 hours. So yeah.
Cool. So when you're painting in your room now here, I mean, do you have music on or kind of other background distractions, or are you just in that zone?
I love movies. I have a couple TV shows that I'll watch on repeat, but I'm a big movie person. And I think one weird thing about me is that I will watch the same movies over and over again. And to the point where I don't even need to watch it, and I'll just listen. And so if I have a movie on while I'm painting, it's like I don't know, I don't really need to watch it. It's purely entertainment in terms of the fact that I know what's going on. Or Gilmore Girls, watch that show on repeat and just paint, because it's kind of like a comfort, mindless show, but also I'll just listen to music. I do think I'm way more productive when I am just listening to music versus watching TV or a movie. But I do like if I can spend 30 hours on a painting and I can spend 15 hours on a painting and I'll get to the same result. But if I want to get the painting done in 15 hours, I need to be extremely mindful about every decision I'm making and trying to be extremely efficient, because if you kind of just get in the zone and you're not thinking, that people say that that's where your best art happens and comes to life. But personally, I think I really have to kind of think it through, or else I'll kind of make progress and then take 2 steps back, and then make progress and then take 2 steps back. So
you have an Instagram account where you thankfully share your art with the rest of us. How did that come about? Did somebody suggest that to you, or did you one day just want to show off your work, or what happened?
Rocket Artistry is my title. Rocket is a soccer nickname that started from my coach Bob Galarno. He nicknamed me Rocket when I was probably 12, so it's kind of just stuck. But Rocket Artistry actually started as Rocket Photography. That started with me getting a camera when I was 15. I decided that I wanted to go on a Big Sur photography trip with my mom, where I would take photos and edit them and do all my thing, and then make a website and sell some of my photography, and pick a nonprofit to donate the money to. So that started with that's how my website started, and then that's also when the Instagram started. That started as Rocket Photography, and then I would say COVID, free time, what are you gonna do? Start an Instagram account. That's when Rocket Artistry, my Instagram and the website started.
What's something that you still want to paint that you haven't tackled yet?
Recently, I've been really wanting to do bigger pieces. I'm currently working on a very large piece for my mom. It is a photo that I took on our last trip to Italy when we visited my family. And I took that not this summer, but the summer before, and I've started the painting this spring, and I'm still working on it. I have so much work to do still. I want to say it's 3 by 4 feet, and it's just like a lady sitting on these pillars in Rome, and it's really beautiful. Really enjoyed it. I like being able to kind of try architecture. It's been a challenge, but it's been fun. But I do think that piece has really made me realize how much I love doing larger scale pieces. I think I've been really wanting to do, with all the animals I've been doing, I've been really wanting to do like a large tiger. Something like, not that I do things like hyper realistic, but I do think it would be fun to kind of challenge myself to do a large, hyper realistic wildlife something. So the piece that I mentioned, that was the piece that I kind of look back on that I have back home that I did over COVID that was kind of a really big moment for me. That I have scoliosis, and I have kind of been dealing with that since 7th grade. And that was a really hard time for me, finding out that I was gonna have to be wearing a back brace for 4.5 years. And that was definitely a big halt on my dreams of trying to play college sports. And I don't want to say a low point in my life, because I think it was a big part of my life, but definitely a big obstacle that I had to deal with. And the painting, that is probably the painting that I have the most personal relationship with, is a painting of a girl with scoliosis with a little moth on her spine. And I did that as a part of my studio collection of the connection between women and nature. And that piece was the first time that I think I really painted something for myself. And I think also understanding that I have a friend who also has scoliosis and went through the spinal fusion surgery, and she asked for a print. And being able to share that, it was really cool to feel like I can have an impact on other people's emotions through my artwork. So kind of a spin on that. I'm not totally sure what I can do to continue that. I think I someday want to find ways to add my environmental passion with my artwork passion. I'm not sure what that is gonna look like yet, but I do think that I'm considering a 5th year abroad to do art classes. So who knows, maybe I can take that year to find that connection.